A wealthy and ailing man once made an unusual request. He asked his nurse to pretend to be his daughter for a day. What unfolded hours later left him stunned when his wife entered the room with a lawyer and an unexpected document in hand. Gianna, a 28-year-old nurse, sat at her small kitchen table, surrounded by stacks of bills and job ads. Her light brown hair framed her delicate face, while her green eyes reflected both resilience and worry. Having grown up in an orphanage with no family to rely on, Gianna had only herself to depend on. Recently, she'd been feeling increasingly unwell, but without money for treatment, she knew she needed a job urgently. As if by some twist of fate, her phone rang, displaying an unknown number. She picked up, hopeful it might be a response to the countless resumes she had sent out. On the other end, a composed, authoritative voice introduced herself. "Good afternoon, my name is Carly. I'm looking for a nurse to care for my husband, and your name was recommended to us." Gianna, surprised, hesitated. "I don't recall applying for this position, but I'd be very interested in working as a caregiver." Trying not to sound desperate, she added, "When would you like me to come?" Carly responded without pause. "Can you come to the mansion today for an interview? It's urgent." Excited yet nervous, Gianna agreed. When she arrived at the imposing Gregg mansion, Carly greeted her. She had a stiff demeanor, and her tone was cold. During the interview, Carly revealed that her husband, Mr. Gregg, was battling a rare illness. "Doctors say he doesn't have long to live, but I think they're exaggerating. It's not as dire as they make it seem," Carly said dismissively. Gianna felt a pang of sympathy for the man she hadn't yet met, but couldn't help feeling unsettled by Carly's detached tone. "I'm sorry to hear that," Gianna said softly. "I'd like to meet him, if that's all right." Before Carly could respond, a man in gardening clothes accidentally walked into the room, disrupting their conversation. Carly's reaction was immediate and harsh. "Don't you have eyes? Get out of here," she snapped. The gardener apologized profusely and left, visibly embarrassed. Gianna felt uncomfortable, both for the gardener and by Carly's behavior, but she stayed focused. "Please, I think it's important I meet Mr. Gregg now," she insisted. Carly led her upstairs to Mr. Gregg's room. As soon as Gianna stepped in, she noticed something was wrong. Mr. Gregg was lying in bed, his face pale and strained as he coughed violently, struggling to breathe. Gianna rushed to his side, ready to offer help, but unease lingered in her mind. Something about this family didn't feel quite right. And so, the day began. A day that would reveal secrets, test loyalties, and leave lives forever changed. Gianna rushed to the frail man, carefully adjusting his position to help ease his breathing. She gently patted his back, her voice steady yet filled with urgency. "He's not breathing," she murmured as she sprang into action. Fearing for his life, she shifted him slightly and began performing chest compressions. Moments later, the man gasped for air, his breathing slowly returning. Relief washed over Gianna as she sighed, grateful she had arrived in time. "Are you feeling okay now?" she asked, her tone filled with concern. Still catching his breath, Mr. Gregg managed a faint smile. "You have angel hands. Thank you," he whispered, his voice weak but sincere. His pale face and frail frame revealed a deeper story, one that troubled Gianna. "He's so thin," she thought, her heart sinking. Are they not caring for him properly? Pushing aside her doubts about his wife, she focused on the moment. "I'm glad you're okay, Mr. Gregg," she said warmly, offering a reassuring smile. Standing in the doorway, Carly watched the scene with a tense expression, her discomfort palpable. "Well, it seems you did something good," she said, though her tone carried an edge. "But I believe I can take care of my husband myself. He's improving. This was just an accident," she added dismissively, her words making Gianna uneasy. Mr. Gregg, visibly upset, turned to his wife. "I still have a say in this house," he declared, his voice trembling but firm. "Gianna, I want you to stay. You saved my life." Gianna felt a mix of relief and the weight of responsibility. "I'll do my best for you, Mr. Gregg," she replied, glancing at Carly. "If possible, I'd like a full-time position. Considering his condition, I can even stay in a small room, or just an armchair, so I can be close and care for him," she added, her voice steady but filled with quiet determination. Mr. Gregg's gratitude was evident. "Stay as long as you need," he said, his eyes full of appreciation. Then, turning to Carly, he added firmly, "Carly, prepare our best guest room for her. It's the least we can do to thank her." Weeks passed, and Gianna quickly adapted to her routine, caring for Mr. Gregg with unwavering dedication. But with each passing day, her own health seemed to deteriorate. She felt weak, her body aching more with time. "I need money to see a doctor," she thought, considering finding additional work during her rare free hours. Yet, the thought of leaving Mr. Gregg worried her deeply. "I'll take care of myself once he's better," she decided. Her determination kept her moving through the sprawling mansion, carrying trays of medication and following the doctor's instructions with precision. But despite her efforts, Mr. Gregg's condition seemed to worsen, mirroring her own declining health. In caring for him, Gianna found a sense of purpose. "He needs me," she whispered to herself as she struggled up the stairs, her steps slow and deliberate. Entering Mr. Gregg's grand yet somber room, she saw him finishing a phone call. His voice was as frail as the wind, each word a struggle. When he finally hung up, Gianna could see the exhaustion in his eyes, but also a faint glimmer of gratitude. Mr. Gregg's green eyes locked onto Gianna with a sudden intensity, urgency shining through his weakened state. Whatever had transpired during his phone call seemed deeply troubling, his worry written across his face. "Gianna," he began softly, his voice barely audible. This might be my last day." The weight of his words hung in the air like an unspoken farewell. Gianna moved closer, setting the tray of medications carefully beside his bed as her heart tightened with unease. She could see how much effort it took for him to speak, and she braced herself for what he might say next. "There's something very important I need you to do," he continued, pausing as though every breath was a struggle. Before she could respond, her eyes caught something unusual on the tray, an unfamiliar bottle and 2 envelopes she hadn't seen before. She knew every medication and document by heart. This wasn't part of the regular routine. "Do you know what this is?" she asked, her curiosity mingling with concern. Mr. Gregg followed her gaze and answered quickly, his tone as firm as his frail voice allowed. "That medication and those documents, they are crucial for what comes next. I asked a trusted friend to leave them here." Gianna was confused but resolute. "How can I help, Mr. Gregg?" she asked, her voice steady, carrying a promise of loyalty. "Your health and happiness are all that matter to me." Since she had started working at the mansion, Gianna had felt an increasing closeness to Mr. Gregg. Despite his weakened state and their limited conversations, she was grateful for his kindness and the opportunity he'd given her. Mr. Gregg tried to extend his hand toward her, a gesture of gratitude and desperation, but his strength failed him, and the motion fell short. "Gianna," he murmured, his voice cracking with emotion, "you've brought light to my dark days. But there's one last thing I need from you, a favor." His next words took her by surprise. "Pretend to be my daughter. I don't want to leave this world without—" His voice faltered as he began coughing violently, leaving the thought unfinished. Gianna leaned closer, her heart aching. "Why are you asking this of me, Mr. Gregg?" she asked, struggling to understand the request. "You'll be fine. I have faith you'll get better," she added, hoping to reassure him and herself. "This is my last request," he said weakly, his voice trembling. "I have no more time." A fresh wave of coughing overtook him, and Gianna instinctively moved to support him. She hesitated briefly, but then spoke with gentle humor to lighten the weight of the moment. "All right, Mr. Gregg. Or should I say, Father," she said, forcing a small smile despite the heaviness in her chest. Inwardly, she thought, "He has no one but me. We're more alike than I realized." Before he could explain further about the medications or the reason behind his request, the door burst open. Carly, his wife, entered the room with determined strides, her eyes sharp and commanding. Behind her, a man in a perfectly tailored suit followed closely, his presence exuding formality and importance. "It's time," Carly declared, her tone leaving no room for argument. The air in the room shifted, tension rising as Gianna turned her attention toward the unexpected visitors, unsure of what was about to unfold. "Greg." Carly's sharp voice cut through the tension like a blade, shattering whatever moment of intimacy had existed just a moment before. "I need you to sign the will. I've brought a lawyer to witness everything," she said bluntly, her tone cold and impatient. Gianna felt the room grow heavier as tension filled the space. Taking a step back, she cast a questioning glance toward Mr. Gregg, her mind racing. Is this why he asked me to pretend to be his daughter, so he wouldn't have to sign these papers, she wondered? Before she could ask, Mr. Gregg was overtaken by a violent coughing fit. His breathing grew ragged, and his face paled even more. Carly, unfazed by his distress, pressed forward with her demand. "Greg, you need to sign these papers now. This is crucial," she insisted, shoving the will toward him. Her hands, though steady, betrayed the urgency she clearly felt. Mr. Gregg looked up at her, his green eyes filled with a mix of clarity and resignation that seemed to rise above his physical frailty. "Carly," he began weakly, his voice barely above a whisper, "even now, in my condition, this is all that matters to you?" His words were laden with disappointment and sadness, striking a chord even in Gianna, who stood quietly observing the scene. As Gianna's own dizziness began to set in, she steadied herself. "I can't pass out now," she thought, forcing herself to focus on Mr. Gregg. Suddenly, the machines monitoring his vitals emitted a series of alarming beeps. The irregular pattern was a clear sign that his condition was worsening rapidly. "What's happening?" Gianna exclaimed, panic seeping into her voice. She leaned over him, her hands working instinctively to assess the situation. For a moment, she forgot her own weakness as her nurse training took over. Carly, finally noticing the chaos unfolding, moved closer but remained fixated on her goal. "It doesn't matter. He needs to sign these papers now," she snapped, her determination unshaken even as the machines screamed their warnings. Mr. Gregg, gathering the last bit of strength he had, reached weakly for the document. His hand trembled as it neared the paper, but just as he tried to lift it, his consciousness began to fade. His eyes fluttered shut and his hand fell limply to his side. "Carly," he murmured faintly before his head drooped and his body went limp. Gianna sprang into action. "He's going into shock," she shouted, grabbing for the resuscitation device. Her voice was filled with urgency as she turned to Carly, her eyes a mix of pleading and reproach. "This can wait. I need to help him now." But Carly wasn't listening. Driven by her own agenda, she pushed Gianna's hands away from Mr. Gregg, causing the resuscitation device to slip from her grip and crash to the floor. It broke into pieces with a resounding crack. "Get out of this room now!" Carly screamed, her finger pointing toward the door. "This is your fault. He was fine before you came into his life." Despite Carly's harsh accusations, Gianna stood her ground. Something stronger than fear anchored her, a deep sense of responsibility, faith, and desperation to save Mr. Gregg. "No," she said firmly, almost as if speaking to herself. Her voice grew louder, steady with conviction. "I need to do this." The determination in her tone was unshakable. Even as Carly raged, Gianna's focus remained unbroken, her every action driven by a singular purpose: to save Mr. Gregg from the brink of death, no matter the obstacles in her way. "He's dying," Gianna thought, panic rising in her chest. But she couldn't let him go. Not like this. Her trembling hands moved instinctively toward the unfamiliar medication on the tray, desperation clouding her judgment. She whispered softly, almost pleading, "Mr. Gregg, please, stay with me." Her words, fragile as they were, carried all the hope she could muster, as if they might somehow pull him back from the brink. Carly stood frozen for a moment before her voice cut through the room like a whip. "What do you think you're doing? Get your hands off my husband now," she demanded. Though her tone carried authority, there was an unmistakable tremor of fear beneath it. But Gianna barely registered Carly's words. Her focus was unshakable, fixed entirely on the fragile thread of life that was slipping away from Mr. Gregg. He wasn't just a patient, he was the owner of a massive pharmaceutical institution, a man who deserved a fighting chance. This has to work. It's the only way, she thought, her heart racing. Despite her fear, She knew that administering the medication might be his last hope. With a mixture of desperation and determination, Gianna injected the unfamiliar drug. Time seemed to slow as she watched him, her eyes searching frantically for any sign of improvement. Every second felt like an eternity as she clung to the hope that her decision hadn't been in vain. But the miracle she prayed for didn't come. Instead, his condition visibly worsened. His already labored breathing grew more erratic, his face losing what little color it had left. A wave of dread washed over Gianna. "This can't be happening," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I just wanted to help," she added, her words barely audible as tears welled up in her eyes. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Gianna pressed the emergency button she had insisted Mr. Gregg install weeks earlier. She had anticipated moments like this, where his condition might spiral out of control. But even as alarms blared and her heart raced, Carly's fury didn't abate. Turning to Gianna with venom in her voice, Carly spat. "You couldn't even save him before he signed the documents." Gianna's breath caught in her throat. The weight of Carly's words hit her like a punch to the gut, but she didn't respond. Instead, her focus remained on Mr. Gregg, her mind racing with everything she had learned and every ounce of care she could give. "He's not gone yet," she thought to herself. "I still have to try." "That's enough. You've done enough. Get out of my house now." Carly's voice rang out, cold and unyielding. Gianna felt the weight of guilt pressing down on her chest. "I'll have security escort you to the door," Carly added sharply before leaving the room, the lawyer following closely behind. As soon as they were gone, Gianna glanced at Mr. Gregg, his frail figure trembling with distress. Taking advantage of the brief moment alone, she discreetly slipped the papers he had shown her into the pocket of her uniform. Leaning closer to him, she whispered softly, "Hold on, I will find a way to help you." A security guard entered moments later, signaling it was time for her to leave. As she was escorted out, dizziness began to overwhelm her. Each step felt heavier than the last, and she stumbled, her strength waning. "Hurry up!" the guard muttered impatiently. "I just wanted to save him," Gianna thought, tears welling in her eyes. She barely registered the shove the guard gave her before she collapsed onto the mansion's driveway. The world spun around her, her body weak and trembling. The guard left her there without a second thought, disappearing back inside as if she were insignificant. Gianna sat in the grass, struggling to steady her breath, her body too weak to rise. As she tried to compose herself, the gardener appeared, offering his arm for support. His voice was gentle, a stark contrast to his rugged exterior. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine," Gianna said, though her voice betrayed her exhaustion. "It's Mr. Gregg who's not." She leaned on the gardener to stand, appreciating the kindness in his eyes. In the distance, she heard the wail of sirens growing louder. The ambulance had finally arrived. Panic turned into fierce determination as Gianna murmured, more to herself than to the gardener, "I need to go to the hospital." She knew Carly wouldn't let her accompany the ambulance crew. Fighting the dizziness that threatened to consume her, Gianna trudged toward the nearest taxi stand. Her steps were slow and labored, her body crying out for rest. But she refused to give in. He has no one else. His wife doesn't care for him, she thought, clinging to her resolve. Once inside the taxi, she leaned back against the seat, trying to gather her strength. Her eyes fell on her uniform pocket, where the unopened envelopes rested. "Please, God, let there be something useful inside," she prayed silently. Desperation fueling her actions, she tore open one of the envelopes. What she found shocked her: a positive paternity test. The document confirmed that Mr. Gregg had a child, though no name was listed. Alongside it was a report detailing that this unknown child suffered from the same rare disease now threatening Mr. Gregg's life. Gianna's heart raced. Who could this child be, she wondered, unease creeping in. When the taxi arrived at the hospital, Gianna stumbled into the reception area, her breathing heavy with urgency. "I need to see a patient. His name is Gregg," she said, her voice laced with desperation. The receptionist, a woman with a composed demeanor, glanced at her sympathetically but remained firm. "I'm sorry, only family members are allowed to see him at this time." Gianna froze, the weight of her moral dilemma pressing down on her. Mr. Gregg's last request: to pretend to be his daughter. With the paternity test still in her hand, a risky idea formed in her mind. Taking a deep breath, she looked at the receptionist and lied. "I'm his daughter. These papers prove it. I need to see him. It's urgent." She handed over the document, silently thankful that the test didn't specify the gender of the descendant. The receptionist examined the papers briefly before nodding. "Please, follow me." Gianna trailed behind the receptionist, each step heavy with doubt and hope. Am I doing the right thing? She questioned herself, the guilt of her lie weighing heavily on her conscience. Yet, the thought of keeping her promise to Mr. Gregg, to not let him face this alone, gave her strength. When they finally reached the hospital room, Gianna hesitated at the door. Her hand trembled as she pushed it open, bracing herself for what she might see. Inside, Mr. Gregg was connected to an array of machines. Each beep of the monitors echoed the fragility of life. Gianna's heart clenched at the sight, but she stepped forward, determined to fulfill the promise she had made. Gianna found Mr. Gregg lying motionless in the hospital bed, intubated and frail. Beside him stood a doctor, meticulously noting his health status on a clipboard. Her heart ached with guilt and pain as she approached him, barely able to find her voice. "Mr. Gregg, it's me. Gianna, I came as soon as I could," she whispered, though she knew he wouldn't respond. As she placed her cold hand over his, she swallowed hard, her mind echoing with his request. "Pretend to be my daughter." "I'm his daughter. Can you tell me his current condition?" she asked, forcing herself to lie once more. The doctor turned toward her, his face serious as he took a deep breath before responding. "Mr. Gregg is in a deep coma," he said gently. "Given his condition, it's unlikely he'll survive until the end of the day." The words hit Gianna like a blow, the weight of them settling in her chest. Her world seemed to crumble around her as the grim reality of life and death became painfully clear. "He can't leave like this," she thought. Fighting back tears, she turned to the doctor. "I need to be alone with him," she said softly. "With my father." The doctor nodded solemnly and left the room, leaving her alone with Mr. Gregg and the rhythmic hum of the machines keeping him alive. Gianna sank into the chair beside his bed and grasped his hand tightly. "Mr. Gregg, I haven't forgotten my promise," she began, her voice trembling with emotion. "I'll fulfill your last wish. Today, I'll be your daughter." Tears welled in her eyes as she imagined the life they could have shared. "If we were father and daughter, we'd spend the day at the beach," she said through the tears. "No illnesses, no sadness, just stories, laughter, and the sound of the waves. We'd watch the sun set over the ocean and finish the day with coffee by the sea." Her voice faltered as hope and sorrow intertwined in her words. Suddenly, the door flew open, shattering the quiet moment. Carly stormed in, her cold, calculating presence filling the room. Her eyes narrowed as they fixed on Gianna. "What do you think you're doing here?" Carly demanded, her voice sharp and vibrating with disdain. "I thought I made myself clear. You're fired, Gianna. I want you out of my husband's life." Despite her physical weakness, Gianna forced herself to stand. Her knees wobbled, but her gaze was unwavering as she looked Carly in the eye. "You can't fire me," she said firmly, pulling the envelope from her pocket. "I'm his daughter." Carly's expression didn't change. Instead, she laughed, a harsh, bitter sound that echoed unnaturally in the room. "You? His daughter? That's ridiculous," she sneered. "Look at you, your clothes, your demeanor. You don't belong in this family." Her words stung, but Gianna refused to back down. She took a deep breath, summoning the last of her strength. "It doesn't matter what you think," she said, her voice resolute. "I'm staying here. He's not going to be alone." The tension between the two women was electric, the argument escalating. Suddenly, the door opened again, and a team of doctors rushed in, summoned by Carly. "This woman is disturbing the patient," Carly barked, pointing an accusing finger at Gianna. "I demand that she be removed immediately." Gianna tried to approach Mr. Gregg, but her body betrayed her. The room spun, her vision blurred, and she felt a wave of dizziness overwhelm her. As she collapsed to the floor, she murmured her last thought aloud. I won't leave him. Then everything went dark. Gianna saw the faintest movement of Mr. Gregg's fingers, a subtle yet undeniable sign of life. Her weak voice broke the tension in the room. He moved, she whispered, catching the attention of the medical team rushing to help. Carly, standing at a distance, dismissed the nurse's words. Ignore her. This girl is nothing but a nuisance, and she doesn't have the money to pay for any of this, Carly declared coldly. Those were the last words Gianna heard before everything went black, her body giving in to exhaustion and stress. Sometime later, Gianna opened her eyes to the soft glow of a hospital room. Her head throbbed, and urgency pulsed through her veins as she took in her surroundings. The room was clearly expensive, every detail pointing to a level of care she could never afford. I can't stay here. I don't have the money for this, she thought, panic bubbling to the surface. Determined, she ignored the dizziness and began removing the IVs from her arms, biting back the pain. Every muscle in her body screamed in protest as she swung her legs over the side of the bed. Turning her head, she spotted her bag and the envelope containing Mr. Gregg's test results on a nearby chair. Someone must have placed my things here, she murmured to herself, her voice barely audible. She knew time was slipping away, and every second wasted was a second Mr. Gregg didn't have. With trembling hands, she grabbed the envelope in her phone, dialing the number printed on the test results. Her breathing grew ragged as anticipation filled her chest. The call connected, and a calm yet professional voice answered. Pharmaceutical Institute, Dr. Patrick speaking. How can I help you? Dr. Patrick, this is Gianna, Mr. Gregg's nurse. He's in critical condition and hospitalized. I found your number in his test results, but I don't know what to do. Please, tell me how I can help him, she said, struggling to keep her voice steady as her illness threatened to overwhelm her. Gianna, Dr. Patrick responded with a tone of recognition and concern. I'm aware of Mr. Gregg's situation. You need to stay close to him. It's absolutely critical that he's not left alone right now. Can you do that? Gianna's worry deepened. What's happening? Please, I need to know. What can I do to help? She asked, her voice filled with desperation. Dr. Patrick sighed heavily before explaining. Mr. Gregg is part of a study for a cure to the rare disease that's affecting him. The program is revolutionary, but still in its final testing stages. We're expecting the results today, but I don't know if we'll have enough time to save him. His voice grew tighter with emotion. I'm heading to the hospital now. Do not leave his side, no matter what. As the call ended, Gianna's mind raced. What if the medication I gave him wasn't right? What if I made things worse? If he doesn't survive because of me, I'll never forgive myself. I have to be there for him, she whispered, her voice trembling. Pushing aside the overwhelming weakness in her body, she swung her legs off the bed and stood with effort. Each step toward the door felt like a monumental task, but her resolve was stronger than her failing body. I'm coming, Mr. Gregg. Please hold on, she murmured as she moved down the hospital corridors, clutching his documents tightly. Every step was a battle, but her determination never wavered. When she reached Mr. Gregg's room, Gianna was met with a scene of chaos. Doctors and nurses crowded around his bed, their movements urgent and their voices tense. She could hear fragmented phrases amidst the noise, words that filled her with dread. We're losing him. There's no way to save him. Her heart sank as she pushed herself closer, ignoring the dizziness threatening to pull her under. What's happening? She managed to ask, her voice cracking with anxiety. One of the doctors turned briefly toward her, his expression grim. He showed signs of improvement earlier, but now he's deteriorating rapidly. His words were almost drowned out by the cacophony of beeping monitors and frantic commands. Gianna's world seemed to tilt as she processed the dire reality. I can't lose him now, she thought, her grip tightening on the documents in her hands. She refused to give up. Not now. Not when he needed her the most. Gianna's gaze fell on Mr. Gregg, his pallid skin and shallow, labored breaths igniting a wave of desperation within her. The fear of losing someone who had come to mean so much in such a short time overwhelmed her. Please, do something, she pleaded with the doctors, her voice cracking under the weight of her emotions. "Don't let him die." The team leader, a doctor with a grave expression, turned to her. "Miss, Mr. Gregg's condition is extremely fragile. We're doing everything we can, but you need to understand—" "No," Gianna interrupted, surprising even herself with the strength of her voice. "Don't tell me to understand. If there's even the smallest chance to save him, you have to try. You can't give up." Her vision blurred, but she pressed on, unwilling to let weakness stop her. The doctor hesitated, then walked over to her, leaving the other medical staff by Mr. Gregg's side. "We're trying our best, but we also need to take care of you. You're clearly unwell," he said, his tone firm but compassionate. "Forget about me," Gianna shot back, her determination unyielding. "What matters is him. I'll never forgive myself if something happens to him because of me." She fought to steady herself against the wall as her strength waned. "You can't give up on him. There's always something more to try." The doctor sighed, taking a blood pressure monitor to check her condition. "We understand your concern, but we have to be realistic about his chances. Mr. Gregg knew the risks of his condition, and I'm sure he'd want us to prioritize your health too. He's left a legacy with his pharmaceutical institute, and I believe he'd understand." "No," Gianna said, shaking her head and raising her hand weakly to stop him. "He's not just a patient to me. Gregg believed in me when no one else did. He gave me a reason to keep fighting. How can I abandon him now?" "You can't abandon him either. You took an oath, just like I did." Her voice was firm, but the lack of strength in her body was catching up to her. The room seemed to spin, and her vision dimmed as overwhelming fatigue set in. Her final words came out as a soft plea. "Please, save him," she murmured before everything went dark, her body collapsing to the ground as the room faded into silence. Days later, Gianna slowly woke in an unfamiliar hospital room. Her eyelids fluttered open against the bright light that flooded the space. Blinking in confusion, she struggled to orient herself. "Where am I? What happened to Gregg?" she thought, her mind rushing to recall the events before she lost consciousness. The sterile scent and bright lights told her she was in a hospital, but this wasn't the same facility where she had last seen Mr. Gregg. As a nurse, she knew the layout of different hospitals, and this one was unfamiliar. They must have moved me. They probably realized I couldn't afford to stay at the other hospital, she thought, glancing around the modest but clean room. Despite her confusion, she felt significantly better. Her muscles no longer ached, and when she sat up, it was with ease. For the first time in what felt like weeks, her body didn't protest against her movements. But the relief was fleeting as her mind snapped back to the man who had become so important to her. What happened to Gregg? Is he still fighting? Determined to find out, Gianna resolved to get answers, no matter how much it took. As Gianna regained consciousness, she noticed her body felt entirely different, strong and pain-free. She pressed the call button to summon a doctor, her eyes scanning the room for any hospital staff. Moments later, an elegant man entered the room, his face lighting up when he saw her awake. "Gianna, I'm so glad to see you awake. I'm Dr. Patrick," he said, approaching her bed with a warm smile. "I'm Mr. Gregg's trusted doctor and pharmacist. We spoke on the phone." "Mr. Gregg, how is he? I need to know," Gianna asked, her voice filled with urgency and concern. Dr. Patrick smiled reassuringly. "Everything will be explained soon. The attending doctor is on his way to check on you," he said gently, trying to calm her. Still, Gianna's anxiety grew. "I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done for Mr. Gregg," Dr. Patrick continued. "You sacrificed your own health to make sure he was cared for. People like you are truly rare, Gianna." Before she could respond, another doctor entered the room. Gianna immediately bombarded him with questions about Mr. Gregg's condition, but he focused on her instead. "You're in excellent health now, thanks to the treatment you've received," the doctor said, checking the monitors that displayed her vitals. "But I can't afford treatment in a hospital like this," Gianna said, her voice tinged with worry. "I'm unemployed now," she added, thinking back to her dismissal and hoping Gregg had found someone who cared for him as deeply as she had. Dr. Patrick placed a hand on her shoulder to reassure her. "Don't worry about the bills. The Institute is covering everything in recognition of your exceptional care for Mr. Gregg. And as for your job, come with me. There's something you need to see once you're discharged." Curiosity gripped Gianna, but she tried to temper her hope. After all, finding a job so quickly seemed too good to be true, especially without a recommendation from Carly. After a series of examinations, Gianna was finally discharged and accompanied by Dr. Patrick to Greg's mansion. As they arrived, she hesitated at the grand entrance. "Did you bring me here to collect my belongings?" Gianna asked, her voice low as she prepared to face the house that had once been a refuge for her during her hardest times. Dr. Patrick smiled warmly. "No, someone is waiting for you inside." "I'll be back later. I have to check on a program at the institute," he added before leaving. Gianna's steps were slow as she approached the mansion, her heart racing with anxiety. When she opened the living room door, she froze, completely stunned. Standing there, smiling at her, was Mr. Greg. "I can't believe it," she whispered, her voice trembling with joy. "Oh God, thank you," she prayed silently, tears streaming down her face as she stared at her patient, now healthy and standing. Greg walked toward her with steady steps, a sight she had never thought she would see. In all her time caring for him, he had never been able to leave his bed. "You're walking," she said, her voice filled with disbelief and happiness. "Yes, Gianna, thanks to you," Greg said, his steps quickening as he reached her and pulled her into a warm embrace. "You've saved me more times than you can imagine," Greg said, his voice filled with gratitude. "But there's more to this story than you know." Gianna stepped back, noticing the seriousness in his expression. "What do you mean? I've been trying to understand everything, but there are still so many questions. Who is your child? Were you able to save them too?" Greg took a deep breath, his eyes brimming with emotion. "Actually, Gianna, I have a daughter," he began, his voice trembling. "I didn't know who she was until my health began to fail. It took time to confirm with the test results, but yes, I saved her." Gianna let out a relieved sigh and smiled. "That's wonderful. I'm glad she's healthy and safe." Greg's gaze softened as he continued. "She's here, right in front of me." The words hung in the air, and Gianna's smile faltered as shock spread across her face. What did you just say?" she asked, her voice shaking with emotion. Greg smiled warmly. "You, Gianna, you're my daughter." Her knees felt weak, and tears welled up in her eyes as she struggled to comprehend his words. "Me? How is that possible?" she whispered, her voice cracking. "Is this about your request for me to pretend to be your daughter? This can't be real." Greg's smile turned bittersweet. "It's true. I asked you to pretend because I thought I was going to die. I didn't want you to suffer, to gain a father only to lose him so soon. I discovered you spent your life in an orphanage, dreaming of finding your father. I couldn't bear to tell you the truth in those circumstances. I'm so sorry for hiding it." Gianna's tears fell freely as she looked at him, her heart overwhelmed. "All my life, I dreamed of having a family. And it was you all along?" Greg embraced her again, holding her tightly. "Yes, my daughter, it was you all along." Gianna struggled to process the revelation. Each word from Greg uncovered deep emotions she didn't even know she had. "And my mother?" she asked, her voice trembling as tears filled her eyes. "What happened to her? How did you not know you were my father?" Greg lowered his gaze, sadness etched into his features. "Your mother, she didn't love me. We were married, but she was never happy with me. One day, she left without saying goodbye to be with another man. I didn't know she was pregnant with you when she ran away." His voice cracked as he continued. "If I had known, Gianna, everything would have been different. She left you in an orphanage as soon as you were born, but her life didn't last long after that." Gianna began to cry, the weight of her mother's story and the years of longing for a family hitting her all at once. "I also wish everything had been different," she whispered, wiping her tears. Despite the sadness, there was a bittersweet feeling of knowing she had a father, a real father. Greg stepped closer and pulled her into a warm embrace. "I finally have a family," he said softly. "I'll thank God every day for this gift." But Gianna still had questions. "How did you find out I was your daughter?" Greg's expression turned serious. "Carly, upon learning of my illness, started investigating to see if there was anyone else who might inherit my fortune. She didn't tell me about you, but one day, during a health crisis, I found your photo among some files. I recognized you immediately. You looked just like your mother did at your age. That's when I hired an investigator to find you. When he confirmed your identity, I still wasn't sure if we were related. I hired you as my nurse, partly to be certain, but mostly because I was afraid you had the same illness I did. I couldn't stand the thought of you suffering alone. Carly didn't want me to hire you, maybe because she feared the truth would come out. She hid everything from me, and I wanted to believe she was trying to protect me. But her constant attempts to fire you made me suspicious, and I wouldn't let her succeed. Greg's voice cracked as he continued. While waiting for the DNA test results, I noticed how much you were hiding your own pain just to care for me. I'm sorry I didn't realize it sooner. Tears filled his eyes as he looked at her. Gianna looked away, embarrassed. I didn't want you to worry about me, she said quietly. You're an angel in my life, Gianna, Greg said, his voice thick with emotion. But when I realized the truth, the DNA results didn't matter anymore. I already saw you as my daughter. I asked my medical team to prioritize finding a cure for the disease, not for myself, but for you. Gianna smiled through her tears. I cared for you, as if I knew you were my father, she admitted, recalling all the times she had tended to him with affection. Greg's face grew serious again. When the results confirmed you were my daughter, I didn't have time to tell you. And then I discovered something even worse. Carly was drugging me to make my condition worse, so she could inherit my fortune. The betrayal was devastating, but it only strengthened my resolve to protect you. Gianna's emotions swirled. Relief, anger, sadness. What happens now? What about Carly? Greg's eyes burned with determination. Dr. Patrick took blood samples while I was in the hospital. We have proof of what Carly did. She had lawyers ready to take control of my fortune. But while you were recovering, she was arrested. Justice has been served. Carly won't go unpunished. And your illness? The cure? Is it permanent? Gianna asked, her anxiety peeking through. Greg smiled, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Yes, the cure works. The medication you gave me was part of the experimental treatment. Thank God it saved me. And now, we're both cured. We have a whole future ahead of us. A wave of joy and relief washed over Gianna. That's amazing. So there's hope for both of us, she said, her smile growing through her tears. Greg's smile widened. I've already booked tickets for when you leave the hospital. We're going to have that day at the beach you talked about. Gianna's breath hitched. You could hear me while you were in a coma? Yes, Greg replied, his voice soft. And I promise, I'll do everything to make sure we have that day at the beach, and many more after. Thank you, Dad. For everything, Gianna said, her voice filled with gratitude. Greg's eyes shimmered with emotion as he heard her call him Dad for the first time. No, my daughter, thank you. You gave me a reason to keep fighting. In the days that followed, father and daughter worked side by side, rebuilding their bond and confronting the legal challenges Carly had left behind. Together, they looked forward to a future filled with love, strength, and the family they had both longed for. Justice was served, and Carly ended up behind bars, paying for her malicious attempts to steal Greg's inheritance and for endangering his life. With his health now significantly improved, thanks to the groundbreaking medical treatment developed by his own company, Greg fulfilled a promise he had made to Gianna. Father and daughter spent an unforgettable day at the beach, celebrating not only Greg's recovery, but also the new life they had ahead of them. It was a day filled with laughter, heartfelt conversations, and dreams for the future. This special outing marked the beginning of many cherished moments they would share as a reunited family. Gianna, now embracing her new chapter in life, took on a meaningful role at Greg's Pharmaceutical Institute. Leveraging her experience as a nurse, she began training other nurses to identify signs of abuse, both physical and emotional, that often go unnoticed in family environments. Her teachings empowered healthcare professionals to better recognize and support patients who were silently suffering, turning them into stronger advocates for vulnerable individuals. This initiative not only elevated the Institute's reputation within the healthcare industry, but also positioned Gianna as a leading voice in the fight against domestic abuse and neglect. Drawing from her own painful experiences, she channeled her past into a force for change, giving her work a deeply personal and impactful mission. Greg, inspired by his daughter's strength and compassion, dedicated a significant portion of the Institute's resources to supporting this cause. Together, they established awareness programs and partnered with organizations that championed patients' rights, ensuring that care was provided in safe and supportive environments. Under Gianna's leadership and with Dr. Patrick's guidance, the Institute began implementing groundbreaking policies to set new standards in patient care. These changes inspired a ripple effect across the healthcare sector, fostering safer and more empathetic practices. Gianna's impact extended beyond the walls of the Institute. Her work garnered widespread recognition, and she was invited to speak at conferences and events focused on health and well-being. At these gatherings, she not only shared her professional insights but also opened up about her personal journey, touching countless hearts and inspiring others to join her cause. As they rebuilt their lives, Gianna and Greg's bond grew stronger with every passing day. Their relationship was one of mutual respect, admiration, and unconditional love, a testament to their resilience and ability to overcome life's challenges together. They found joy in the little things, celebrating every victory and embracing each new day as a gift. If you enjoyed this story, we'd love for you to like and subscribe to our channel. Your support inspires us to continue bringing you captivating stories like this one every day. Don't miss our next exciting narrative coming to your screen soon. Click on the links appearing now for a hand-picked selection of heartwarming and inspiring tales. See you next time.